Hello. I'm back for another round of virtual poker, practicing real skills. Um, since I recorded last time, the game actually introduced a pretty neat little camera device, which made it a lot easier for me to record without having to do a lot of extra editing, essentially, because my head isn't swinging around as much. Well, my head is swinging around, but you can't see it. So now the future videos should be a little bit closer to the live poker vlogging ones, except for the fact that it's fake money, and there's a few differences with fake poker. So anyway, it was a great session. I played about 70 hands. You know, we get these stats things here that we can check on, and I had a lot of fun. So let's dive in. All right, so as soon as I sit down at the table, I get involved in my first hand. Clearly, for live poker, this is a bit of a trashy hand, but we're in VR poker. I do play a little bit wider than I would if I was going to sit down at a live poker table, which I've never done because I'm kind of a coward. Anyway, so the guy next to me bets and half pot, and I call. And now I've got two pair, but I see there's a straight there's a straight there, there's a flush draw there. But I still wonder, can I bluff him out? Or can I get a bunch of money out of him? And now let's hear how he reacted.
Seriously got that lucky? God damn it. A set of jacks. God damn it.
He has a set of jacks and he folds. Maybe then you shouldn't have folded.
Son of a bitch.
I didn't think you had a set. Holy crap. Not a bad start to the session. Okay, so we're on the second hand. In VR poker, you'll find that you get a lot more playable hands, but there are periods you go through where you don't have very playable hands. But it's not like it is in live poker. Another thing about VR poker is that people tend to like to limp into the pots. They want to see the flop. So because I was on the small blind with a not so strong holding, I was able to just complete, and then it was my turn to bet first. And so I decided that I was going to actually put in a small bet instead of checking through, just to see if anybody would call me or raise me. And it actually turns out that it seems like nobody has anything. And this guy takes a little bit to make his decision, but he folds. The next guy folds, and then the guy to my right folds as well, and I take down an easy pot. Okay, so we're one rotation later. I'm on the big blind this time, and I've got Jack, King, offsuit. And this is a great example of how VR is different than real live poker. This guy came into the table making a bunch of noise, so I just pulled out the mute gun and I muted him. And then he goes and collects his free money for inviting his friends, which he can get every 12 hours. So pre-flop, I got a decent hand, so I bet 3 times the big blind, and I get one caller. The flop comes out, I have top pair, and I'm on the button. I'm just waiting to be able to bet. He folds, I take it down. So after a few good hands, I look at King Queen offsuit, another great hand to play in VR poker. But this one is going to humble me a bit, which, you know, you need it every once in a while. So we got this new guy, he came on the table. He's a low-level player, under level 10. He's on one of the larger tables. There's 2 tables above this. So it comes around to my turn, and I bet my standard pre-flop bet. And he decides to go all in with 72,000. Well, I got king, queen. I'm not going anywhere. So I call him. And it turns out that he has ace 6, so he just got 2 pair, beats my 2 pair, which is king high, and I lose some money. And before the next hand is dealt, he bails with his money. Alright, on to the next hand. The table's been playing pretty passively so far. We haven't had anybody except that last guy come onto the table and blast all in, so it's been working out pretty well. I've got Jack 10 offsuit. This time I just decide to call and see what happens on the flop. When the flop comes out, I've got top pair, and I don't think it looks like a very interesting board at all. And it checks around to me, so I decide to put in a small bet. And I get an instant fold, The other guy thinks about it for a little bit, but ultimately he also folds, and again, I take down a nice little pot. The next hand comes in, and it's looking beautiful. Ace-Jack suited. So I put in a little bit of a raise pre-flop, and the person next to me calls, and everybody else folds and gets out of the hand. So it's just heads up to a flop, and it comes up 5-5-9 rainbow. Not so happy with that, but I decide to lead with a small bet to see what happens, and the guy next to me raises me. Well, that's not a good sign. I call him because I want to see if another club is going to come out. When another club does not come out, and in fact it's a 9, I know he's either got a 9 or a 5, so I'm not betting. I check, and he pushes all in, and I fold. Alright, next hand, I'm out of the blinds. I'm the first to bet pre-flop. I don't remember what position that is in a 6-player game, but I've got 2 hearts, Broadway, so I put in my standard bet of 3 times the big blind, 4 times the big blind, 12,000. I get 2 calls and a fold. And we go to the flop. It's looking kind of nice for me. It's a very dry board aside from the hearts, and I've got some decent hearts here. But I don't really want to put in money initially, so I'm just going to check back and see what the others do. So they both check as well. Next card comes up, and it's a king. And I'm thinking, is this a good time to bluff? Well, let's see. If I do a small bet, am I going to get anybody to fold? And it looks like one guy goes in with me and the other one folds. So I'm kind of trying to think about what he has. I don't think he has a jack. I don't think he has a king. Maybe he has 7s, but now it comes up and this is a total brick. But there's no straight on there. There's no flush on there. So I decide to see if I can push him out of the pot. So I do an overbet and he insta folds and I take down a nice little pot. Okay, so here we are on the next hand, and the table is finally completely filled up, so now we've got 6 people on the table. I've got King 3 of hearts on the big blind, so initially I get to see what everybody else is doing, but then of course I have to act early in the future ones. So the person to my left folds immediately, the next person takes a bit of time and calls the big blind. We get another caller for the big blind, a third caller for the big blind, and then the person immediately to my right folds, and it comes to me for the check. So I decide to check it through. When the draw comes out, when the flop comes out, I've got top pair, and there's a couple of spades on board. I'm early deciding, so I'm just going to check, and I'm going to see if somebody else will take a stab. And so somebody does bet, but they only bet 3,000. So I don't think that they have very much. I think they maybe have a draw or a low or middle pair. Certainly they don't really have a king, I don't believe. So when other people call, I call as well. Now the 3 of spades comes up, which is a really interesting card. It gives me 2 pair, but it also gives the flush draw and the straight flush draw. So now, well, while I check it because I'm in early position and I want to see if somebody else is going to take a stab at it, I'm wondering if this is the time that I should put extra pressure. Because if you got a flush draw, you are not folding. If you've got a straight flush draw, you are not folding. So when the person across from me bets 1/4 pot, 6,000 into a $24,000 pot, I think this is a good time. They might have something, but it's not great. So I raise it to a little bit bigger than the pot, so 30,000 from the 6,000 initial bet, and I get some folds, and I'm wondering if this person is going to call me, but they decide to fold as well, and I take down another nice little pot. So a few hands go by with some crappy hands that I fold and watch everybody else, and I get another good playable hand, ace-9 of clubs. I'm actually in really early position here. 2 people fold before me, and I raise it up to 6 times the big blind, 18,000. And I immediately get 2 folds, and I take down this pot too. And now for this hand, I'm on the big blind. So this is where I'm really happy that people like to limp into the pot for a lot of VR stuff, because it does let me play some hands that I would generally fold if anybody bet anything. So I've got a 3-6 of clubs here, clearly not the strongest hand, but everybody limps in, so it gives me a chance to check. Now the flop comes out King 6-2 with 2 spades, and I'm early position, so I'm going to check, and the action checks all the way around. Another card comes up, and it is the Jack of Spades. So now we've got 3 spades that completes the flush draw, and there's no way I'm going to bet with my little tiny pair, so I check again. And it checks around again. So now I do believe that people's got nothing. So when the 10 comes up, it could complete a straight, but I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here, and I bet just a tiny amount, just 2 big blinds, which isn't even half pot, and everybody folds. So I take down a nice little pot, once again, uncontested. Next up, as I'm narrating these things, I'm realizing that I don't really see what position on the table I'm on very well. I see there's some blinds across the table, but I didn't have a good position on the button when it was in front of me even. So I've kind of had to fix that later on. But it comes to me, and I've got ace queen suited, and I raise it up from the standard limp values. And the guy next to me calls, and we get a fold, and another fold. So I am going, let's see, oh, we got 2 callers and 1 fold. So flop comes down for ace 10, rainbow. I've got top pair, but I decide, because it's kind of a dry board, that I'm just going to check it out and see if anybody else bets. We've got $47,000 in the pot right now, and the guy next to me on the left bets, but he only bets for 9,000. So I think about folding, but when it's only 9,000, that's not much of a bet, so I called. The next card comes up, and it's a queen, and I'm in really good position here, but the guy's been betting, so I'm going to check and let him bet, give him some rope, and he bets a bunch, and the guy to my right folds, and now we're heads up. I think about raising here, but I decide to just let him keep piling in the money until the jack comes out, and then I'm like, great, now he's got a straight if he's got a king. So I just checked. I didn't even try to throw money in there, and he checks back. It turns out that we have the identical hand, just different suits, clearly. So we've got ace queen, he's got ace queen, we split it down the middle, essentially split the other guy's money. And then my play starts to get into these really crappy hands. In this 9-3, it was so bad that even the 3 card wanted to run away. It was so ashamed of itself. So the next hand up, I reposition my camera so I can actually see when I'm on the button. And I've got ace 8 offsuit. I'm usually not a fan of betting this pre-flop, and because it's not the best ace hand. It doesn't create a straight. It's not great for flushes. It's nice high card, but that's about it. So I take advantage of the fact that everybody limps into the pots, and I just limp in on the button as well. The cards come up ace 7-6 with 2 spades. And since I'm on the button, I get the chance to act last. Now, in VR poker, you kind of have to be careful here, because a lot of people will actually check back the flop even with a pair of aces, because they will bet on the turn instead, and so that it's not quite as obvious. But I decided to put in some money and see if I could at least fold some people out before more cards come in that could turn into a straight. So I get 1 fold, and I get 2 calls, I get another fold, and the guy to my right was already out of the hand. So now the next card comes up. It's a 3 of hearts. It's pretty much a dud. And when it checks around to me again, then I decide that I'm going to throw in a bunch of money. I basically did a pot size bet, I'm challenging you. If you've got a 5 or a 4, you're hoping for a straight in there. But everybody folds, and I take down another nice little pot. And here we are on the big blind again with some cards that I consider trashy and would generally fold if I had to bet myself. 6-2 of spades. But as usual, what happens is that everybody wants to see a flop, so they all just limp in and I'm able to check. Now this flop comes up and it's okay for me. I still have weak cards, but at least there's got 2 spades there. So now I'm on the big blind, so I'm relatively early position. I decide to put in a little bit of money because I know that this is a very passive table, and I also want to see if anybody has a king and is going to raise me. So I get a couple of calls, but nobody actually raises me. So that kind of tells me that nobody has anything and they're still looking for stuff. So now the 6 comes up. I actually have a pair, so I have a tiny bit of showdown value, and I decide to just check this one back and see if anybody takes a stab at it. And just for that whole, like, they don't bet the king on the flop, they bet it on the turn. Nobody bets. The 10 of spades comes up, completing my flush draw, and I'm not super confident with it. Clearly I've got low cards, but when the activity checks to me, and on this passive table, I have to bet. So I bet 12k into a 17k pot, and everybody folds, and I take down another nice little pot. Okay, so I've been sitting on this table for a while now, and there's been the same 4 people there with only 1 or 2 seats changing, and another guy actually came back that was already a passive player. So even though a king 7 suited is not something that I would raise pre-flop with, I know that these guys are just going to limp in, and I wanted to fold some people out. So I raise pre-flop, everybody folds except for one guy, and when the action checks back to me after this flop of ace 4-10, I decide to put in some money. So I put 12k into a 23k pot, everybody folds, and I take it down. Alright, and now we're on the big blind, and we've got king, queen, offsuit. Now this hand might not be something that I would raise in a live poker game depending on the table, but if I was on a live poker game that was a table like this, I would still be raising. Everybody's very passive in this game, and they like to see a flop. And, well, I don't want to have everybody see a flop, so I made sure to raise the pot to try to get rid of some people. And it turns out that I had one caller, the other one folded, and we go heads up to a flop of 7-4-10 with 2 clubs. I'm going to check over and with my overcards, and he decides to bet. And he bets about half pot or 3/4 of the pot, and I call. Next card up gives me top pair, and I check over to him to see if he will bet again, and he doesn't. The next one that comes up is a spade. Now, he could have a flush, but I think he had top pair over there, so I'm just going to do a little quarter pot bet and see if he calls me. He sits over there and he thinks about it for a while, because everything is lower than the 10 except for that one king, and he's trying to calculate, do I actually have the king? But finally, when he decides, he folds, and I take down the pot again. Alright, so here I am on the button, and I've got ace 4 offsuit. And as usual, everybody limps into the pot. And this time, instead of raising, I decide that I will join them and just limp in. I've been betting aggressively and folding people out in various spots. I'm sure they're getting sick of me, so I thought I'd, maybe take a little step back a bit. The flop comes up, 9-3-2 with 2 hearts. Pretty weak holdings, not all that great. And when the action checks around to me with no bet, then because I'm in position, I decide to do a small bet in position with my entire range, and from that, I get fold after fold after fold, and I take down another little pot. The very next hand, I'm on the big blind, and I get Jack, King offsuit. And even though I'm on the big blind, I decide to put in a raise, kind of like a squeeze, I guess is what you call it. I get one caller, everybody else folds. And when this comes up, I'm not in position, but I get one check to me. I'm on a severely passive table, so I put in the money because I don't think they're going to, and he folds, and I take it down again. Now the very next hand, here I am on the button, and I get Queen 5 offsuit. Since I have to actually pay the blind this time, I think I'm just gonna fold. And then despite the fact that I've been looking like I've been winning a bunch, I described to the person across to me that my bankroll is just going up and down. I've been playing a number of hands, and I basically have the same amount of money. Next hand, I'm on the big blind, so because we have a limpy table, I'm expecting that I'm just going to be able to check and see a flop. But as it turns out, everybody must have crappy hands because they fold and they just give it to me. Now I've got a new person to my right hand side and a relatively new person across from me. I've got King 5 of clubs in relatively early position, so it's nice, it's suited. I decide to raise it up a little bit so I can see if I can get some people to fold pre-flop so I have less competitors. And it does fold out one person there, but it does keep in most of the people. Next guy folds, got another fold. Sorry, I guess I'm wrong about that. And I get 2 calls. Now, I was a dumbass and I stuck my chips right in the way, so it's actually blocking some of these flops. But fortunately, I was, able to see the cards myself and I didn't realize I was doing this. So the flop comes out and it's got 3 spades, and I kind of mutter, wow, that's a monotone board. So when I do that and I put a little bet in, maybe people are thinking that I have a flush. I have no idea. But I put in a half pot bet, and that is enough to get one more fold. But I get a call from the person on my right. So now we're going 4 ways to a turn, and that turns out to be an 8 of diamonds, even though you can't really see it there. So really nothing. So I check. We get a 2 of diamonds, which again, really nothing. And the person next to me bets a half pot bet, and basically I'm thinking he's maybe had a flush draw that broke, or maybe he has a pair, so I call with my bluff catcher, and it turns out that I'm good. And when his card goes back to the dealer, I see that he's got Jack 6 offsuit for second pair. Thankfully, the reason why I pile up those coins there in that spot is because I want to use them and get rid of them. So when I've got ace 10 offsuit and I have a chance to bet, I throw them in there, and now we can see the community cards again. So the action calls around because again, we're on a very passive table. And the flop comes down King 7-6 rainbow. Not a great one for us, but again, the action is checking around. So when the action checks to me, I decide on this occasion that I'm going to check it back. And it checks all the way through, so nobody has to bet. The next card that comes up is a 7 of hearts. So now if they had a 7 before, now they've got trips. If they had 2 hearts, they've got a flush draw. So I'm deciding to put in a little bit of money, just under half pot, to try to see if anybody will raise. I get a call and 2 folds and then another call. So I go 3 ways to the final card, which is a king of diamonds. Now, if you had a 7 or a king, you've got a full house. I don't really want to bet against that too much, so I just check it back and see if anybody bets. I was intending to fold, but nobody decides to bet. I've been doing some check raising, so maybe they're a little bit nervous. I have no idea, but nobody bets, and it turns out that I've got the high card and I win. All right, so that was a pretty good session. It was a really passive table, and it gave me a great opportunity to try to read what other people had to a degree. I'm not very good at it, but I was able to put some pressure on people in certain situations and take down a lot of pots uncontested. I played about 70 hands. The thing is, though, I show you the ones that I won, but I had some ones where, I lost as well. And it just ended up that I walked off the table with about 7,000 less than I walked onto the table with. So I played for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 70 hands, and ended up with no profits. But it was a lot of fun. It was quite interesting. And I think I'm starting to do quite well on the higher tables now. I used to be afraid of them because I was afraid that the people would be able to figure out my strategies. But now I'm finding that my strategies are improved and my ability to kind of suss out other people has also improved. And that is really awesome. So thanks for joining me. If you'd like to come and check out PokerVR, there's always lots of people on the tables. But don't think that it's like real poker because there's a lot of things that you have to figure out that are different if you want to keep your bankroll. Anyway, hope to see you on the tables. Take care.